All right, Sunday, April 12th, 4:25 p.m. About, I don't know, 60 and rainy all day. And it doesn't look like it's going to let up. Where are we in the state of the Northeast? Well, depending on where you are, some of my orchards are still at green to silver because of these really strange cold heat snaps. Some of them are a half inch, and who knows? It seems like some of them, the more vigorous ones, are going to probably push the tight cluster into next week, maybe going into the week after. Depending on where you are in the state, you could be looking as close as pink. Maybe even bloom in some of the earliest cultivars, depending on where you are in the really far east and down near Long Island, Hudson Valley area. I'm too scared to even look. I don't even want to start fire blight discussions already. I'm going to keep it to scab for one more week, and then we'll probably will do some fire blight predictions going into next week to cover those eastern parts of the state. Where we are, a lot of rain. Copper. I think copper is over now. With some cold weather, it's warmed up again. If you're still really early on, I think you could push it. If they're starting to look a little too far gone into a really late half-inch green to tight cluster, maybe leave it alone. And if you're going to get all the rain this week, we'll talk about it specifically. Use those AP, anilinopyrimidine fungicide, Scala Vanguard, or a Dodine if the rain never lets up. We still got a couple applications. You get two before the into bloom, and you got to use them sometime. They're only really good against apple scab. Same with the APs, really strong on apple scab. That's probably really push them in the early season and save all those 7, 11, 13, 3s, and 52s for later on when you've got all these other not awful diseases, cedar apple rust, mildew, apple blotch, bitter rot, everything else. Save them for that time. And of course, if you're in full organic, don't have too many more options. You might be able to squeeze a copper out if you're doing a sort of organic cider apples with scab. You know, you're not really worried about fruit finish. After that, sort of move into the biopesticides and start a really tight schedule of them. This is one of those weeks you might need to do two to get yourself through to next Sunday. I'd look at the rain, and we will, and see what we're looking at. Will we have some cold weather, but it's heating up? It's going to get 80s and rain, even in the Finger Lakes area. Will we get that 15% ascospore ejection? If we do, use that Scala or Vanguard or the Dodine so that you get a couple of them that work well on scab, but not that other diseases. Less than, just keep your coverage. Watch the amount of rain that we have. If you're still under an inch or about 1.5 inches, your Cap Tan and Mancozeb can hang in there for a little while, but you have to make sure you can get back in and put them on. If it's really light and you don't really, maybe something like Honeycrisp, just put a biopesticide on, like the liquid ones. What else do we say? If you're in full organic, you don't have too many choices. I might recommend if you have a pretty heavy scab ejection week, get that sulfur on there, that microthiol, pretty good product. There are others as well. That one I've had a lot of practice spraying. Seems to work pretty well. Sprays well. Doesn't give me a lot of trouble. Doesn't clump up. If you have a light period, pick your liquid biopesticide and hope for the best. Put those things on. They're not going to have a lot of residual, so if you get more rain, it'll kind of wash off. And at that point, let's move over and take a look at the forecast for New York to put that out of there. All right, apple scab forecasts. Let's take a look. Apples. I want to go to scab, and we're going to go to Riverhead. All right, Lyrac, it's got a working station. Green tip date many years ago. We're not really getting well, doesn't look like a lot of discharge. In this case, it's probably going to be light rains. Nope, no rains on Long Island. What are they predicting for the upcoming part of the week? Looks like about 53, a little bit of a blip. Not much to worry about. I would say this is your light week. Use your biopesticide. Just if your Cap 10 Mancozeb lost all its coverage, take it easy. It looks like the Finger Lakes is getting all the rain. Maybe, and we'll see as we dig into it. Let's look and see how it's a real light week. I wouldn't even stress panic. Take your time walking towards the 14th, and if you haven't had a lot of rain, you could probably let that go a bit. All right, let's moving into that's a valley. Let's see what we got down there. Not a lot of contiguous rain. We have a little bit of a blip on the 13th. And what's it today? It's already going to be coming up into it. You could protect against this if you had a lot of rain, but look, it's not a lot of rain amount. You do get some leaf wetness hours, not even an infection event. You're probably safe to plan your next application to your own content. I'm going to take a look at another one just for fun. Yeah, same sort of thing. We are getting a blob of rain from about 13th to 14th, but it's probably going to be intermittent off and on. Not a lot of cumulative leaf wetness hours, no infection event. And if you have a good bit of Captan going into the weekend, Captan Mancozeb type combinations, you'll be fine. If you were doing full organic with biopesticide, I might put something on tonight or tomorrow, as I have done in my biopesticide kneading materials. Just got finished doing that not too long ago because we have the sort of off and on sprinkles. Things could be ejecting, but not much. It's not really high, decent maturity, not a lot of ejection in that particular instance. Let's see. So it could be an easy scab week. Let's head up into Voorheesville in the Capital District. Oh, now they're telling us a little bit. We're getting these little blips, each a little bit of leaf wetness there, and there. A really cold spike today? I don't know about that one. Well, I mean, it did get cold a little bit last night. 28's pretty cold, though. Moving into a warmer week, 58 and 60. Problem is the rain isn't lasting very long. It is coming. It's in little spurts. We don't have a lot of maturity, about 11% maturity, less than 1% ejection. I'd say another pretty easy week. If you were doing biologicals, I'd come in tomorrow if you get a break in the rain and put those on. If you got Captan, I mean, really not hitting that 1.5 inches of rain. You don't even have a quarter of an inch of rain. It's just going to be light and misty and easy going. So that also means you'll be able to drive in your orchards. Let's look up in Chazy. Have they even hit green tip yet? I don't know. We'll find out. Still says we're doing good. I don't know. Let's pretend like you had green tip. You have a lot of rain. Problem is it's fairly cold during those average leaf wetness hours, and you're not getting much. If you'd start it, you could probably still continue with your copper if the buds aren't very far along. And you could probably, gosh, if you get a break in the rain, you could put something on. It's not too cold during the week. A lot of leaf wetness hours, but for the most part, you're not getting enough of contiguous rain to trigger those infections. And not to mention that you're really looking at about 2% maturity up in that region with only about a 1% ejection. So it's a good opportunity to do your silver tip or green tip or half-inch green coppers in sort of that early half-inch and keep it on there. Knock down the inoculum and deal with it, but not really having to stress panic about missing an infection period. Most of your rain looks like it's coming tomorrow, and then it's sort of it's hard to tell how much it's going to be. Could just be little bittles. But if you get your residue on, it'll probably last you easily into the next week, getting towards the April 20th time. Let's see, the Finger Lakes look terrible on my weather forecast. Let's see what NUA actually says about it. We'll do area acres. Yep, and this is what I was kind of worrying about here. In the Finger Lakes area, oddly enough, we're moving into extreme levels of maturity. I'm going to check Geneva as well. This is kind of forecast what we're seeing is sort of a kind of hot spike up to 25% maturity this week. 6 and 5, 11%, a total of 20% discharge. And this is why I would come in like I did today and get on a coverage spray. We just came down from a bit of water, a quarter of an inch, moving into a lot of leaf wetness hours, probably about 40 or so coming up. You got a little bit of time, 13th and 14th, to go in and do some stuff and prepare yourself for the big wetting events on these, which begins a little bit on the 14th. It's probably going to be sprinkling off and on the week, and that's what I noticed in the Geneva area, coming in with a big one on the 15th and 16th. That's where your big 11 comes, but you've got 5, 6, 11, 5 in terms of ejection events coming. All that added up together means big time. I would use my AP fungicide, or I might even, in this case, I would probably go for the Dodine, especially if you have Macintosh, because you got some really hot scab weather, 58, 66, and during the infection event, it's predicted to be in the 60s. The scab is going to love it. And if you were to come in with something like Dodine or Scalar Vanguard, I think you'll have a really strong push. Also, Captain Mancozeb would be another really excellent choice in this case. I'm going to check Geneva area, see what we're looking at, see if it shows a similar type pattern. Yeah, not so intense as closer to Ithaca, closer to the southern tier area, a little bit more trouble in that particular instance. Geneva, we got one coming. It's not much of a panic one, I would say. You could be a little bit Here, I'm going to check sodas just because I'm scared. See what they look like. Oh, gross. I don't like this Sodas one. Sodas is sporting, a little bit of ejection. It's going to be a continual bit of rain. 2, 4, 2, 6, 6, 3 throughout the week of ejection percentages just sort of blasting off. We're going to hit 25% maturity, but one long drizzly infection. If you can get in there, I would definitely go with the Dodine. If that's real, I'm going to check another soda site. That seems a little scary. Let's check this one. It's about the same thing. Drizzly constantly. As we're coming off this cool period of wettings for about 40s and 39s, as we're moving into the 50s and 60s, Finger Lake, sort of Western New York, is getting a, just long, wet, raining event. I'd use one of my Dodines now, particularly if I had scab susceptible varieties in this region. I'm going to go see how bad Williamson looks. It's kind of scared. No, it's bad. Yep, the whole area, whole Wayne County area is just getting just these spatterings of constant little bits of ejection. And remember, 3% of 25% of all of the ascospores, which are billions and trillions of them, could get you into some pretty big trouble. You're not going to get your residue washed off necessarily, but I might be willing to try to sneak something in there if I get a break in all of these leaf wetness hours of 24, 24, 16, 15, 20, 20, all the way going into, you get a break on the 17th, which is probably Saturday. You thought you're going to have a day off, but the weather never gives you a day off. This is not great. I'd try to sneak in there and put that Dodine in there, or Scala Vanguard if it's fine, but we're starting to hit temperatures where the Dodine might be a better option in that case. Or you can do Captain Mancozeb will be fine as well with all this drizzle and spatter. That will distribute your Captain around, and your Mancozeb should give you the staying power to weather these. Not lots of rain, 0.08 inches, 0.01, 0.1, little bits here and there, but troublesome nonetheless. How does Niagara County look? I'm almost scared to look. Oh, Appleton North. Let's see how bad that. It's about the same as all of Western New York is in a mess. It looks like the break in the rain for a little bit was yesterday. Well, that's unfortunate. Probably if you get these little bits of drizzle, I would try to find a moment to go in there and recover if you feel like you've weathered out your 1.5 inches of your stronger staying materials last year. What's it look like? About 10% of maturity by the end of the week in Niagara, but you're just ejecting less than 1%, but it's a long drizzly period. I don't want anyone to get in trouble. I'd put something on in there. If you catch a break in the action, I'd do the Todine because we're moving into warmer temperatures for the average approaching the 60s. For the average, which is not necessarily the high, means trees will start moving more aggressively into bloom and in a couple of weeks. I suspect with some of the warmer highs that we have, we'll start to see acceleration in the tight cluster. This rain isn't letting up much until about the 17th for Western New York Niagara. Stay strong. See if you can get something in there. Maintain your coverage. Do a Dodine or an AP if you got it. And we'll see you next week. And good luck.